Just as a reminder, anybody who would like to get a refreshment of the conversation that we have, it's available on on the Capital City YouTube channel. Or if you missed one and you want to catch up, it's a wonderful way to do that. So um, now we're still working on prosperity. I was looking at this morning, and this is a very long chapter, so we have a lot to go through, and that's fine. We're not in a hurry. And I'm just
Where are you, Marty? What paragraph are you in prosperity? Because I missed a week.
yeah. So hold on a second. I'm about to bring that up.
Okay.
I believe
I think it's 15.
it's 15, right? Thanks, Janet.
I got it. Thank you.
So yeah, we made it as far as 15 last week, and we finished a little bit early because we came to this section with a few minutes to go. We decided to not start it, but start afresh or start whole here. Now, this section, giving in substance, has one, two, three, four, five paragraphs, and so there's a lot here. And who would be willing to kick us off and read paragraph 15 and 16?
I will. I'll do it.
Thanks, Janet.
So the whole thing is called Giving and Substance. Explain fully the law of giving and receiving. 15 is we live, move, and have our being in the sea of substance. There is a law that substance must have both an inflow and an outflow. This we call the law of giving and receiving. Substance flows into consciousness where it is given form according to the faith and the understanding of the receiver. Then it must be given out in blessing in whatever form he is able to express it. 16 says, people sometimes say, I have nothing to give, but they do not make such statements after they come into the understanding of spirit substance. There is spirit substance in words of truth, and one may begin giving it in that form. Those who seem not to have in hand the good with which they desire to bless others can give that good in words, and the outward manifestations will come. There is therefore a good reason why one should pray for others. If he affirms good for them, he is praying, and the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. James 5:16. And in the notes, we got two notes that went with those. Note 1 was about inflow and outflow. Inflow and an outflow. Eric Butterworth and many others have quoted Ralph Waldo Emerson's, quote, every man is the inlet and may become the outlet of all there is in God. Prosperity requires a state of being where we are an outlet of all there is in God, one who is giving. And note 2, there is spirit substance in words of truth, and one may begin giving it in that form. We can free people from bondage with words originating from spirit. See Matthew 16:13-20. Peter affirmed Jesus with words of truth, and Jesus declared that Peter's affirmation had loosed on earth what had been bound in heaven. 6 days later, Jesus was transfigured. Matthew 17. Done.
Thanks, Janet. Any comments or thoughts about these two paragraphs? As always, there's a few ideas contained here.
This is not exactly smart, but it did remind me of something I read, I think maybe in Emily Cady's stuff, with a whole essay about fountains and how the fountain stays fresh because the fountain keeps moving the water. And that over in the corners of the pond or wherever, where it's not moving, it gets stuck and stagnant. And this idea, or when reading this today, I was thinking about that outflow. And I guess in a manufactured fountain, the water circulates, it goes up and out, and then it comes back around. And when I first read that from her, I really liked it because I felt like it's not a closed system. It's a moving system. And I can understand that. That's my share.
Thanks, Janet.
Janet, thank you. I agree. That's a very good way to visualize that. And now, whoops, sorry. Now it goes back, and I want to almost reread it, but it definitely talks about that circulation with a fountain. And I have a small pond in the backyard, and that's exactly true. The little corners that are stagnant, all this different algae tries to grow. So I love that. I love that. That's a great visualization.
True.
Thanks, Sandy. It reminds me then that the concept of substance is a dynamic one and not a concrete one. That substance is flow. And oftentimes in unity, we talk about the circulation of God's good. And so that the imagery of the fountain and the movement of the water in the body that's being taken up and sprayed out by the fountain demonstrates both the value and power and potential of flow and where some of the things can get stuck. Anything else? I was also thinking in paragraph 16, it starts out, people sometimes say, I have nothing to give. It reminded me of the story of Jesus at the wedding feast in Cana, when his mother goes, we need some wine. But Jesus goes, well, what? And he decides to use water to turn that into something to give. Okay,
we can do always, yes.
Leo,
I agree.
Say again, please.
Well, we can do that always. We can make something that is normal into something special by giving it that special spirit attention. I agree.
Thank you.
I think sometimes we don't feel like it's enough, or I don't feel like it's enough, that the person might need things to be fixed. You kind of start creating a backstory for them, and so that's part of the feeling of not knowing if I have something to give them, and realizing even just the smallest of things. And there's been times that people have given me smallest of things, and I realized that was more appreciated than a gift or a monetary tchotchke or something. It's understanding what that gift might need to be for the person. It might just be to sit.
That reminds me of the idea there's nothing small in God. Would someone be willing to read paragraph 17, including the prayer in the second paragraph?
I can read it.
Thank you.
I had to find the computer glasses. Okay, number 17. The substance of true words is seed, and the harvest will be rich with increase to all who recognize that their seed words contain life, substance, and intelligence. These constructive, joyous, praise-filled qualities in words of truth make them powerful in demonstrating prosperity, health, protection, guidance, or whatever else is desired. Prosperity is the law of increase in action. To make practical use of this knowledge of the power in words, enter the inner consciousness and there speak directly to God within and realize or feel the truth of words such as these. Dear Father God, I have faith in your ideas as the source and the substance of all my good. I have faith in this substance as it is now manifesting in me and in my affairs. I have increased bounty through my increasing faith in you, dear God, as my Father and my support and supply. I praise and bless you, O Spirit of plenty, for the fullness of your supply. I am free from the care and burden of thoughts of lack, because I am quickened to the consciousness of abundance of all good. I praise and give thanks, dear Father God, for this freedom. I have an inheritance, incorruptible and undefiled. Your ideas are my inheritance, O blessed Spirit of plenty. And then the notes are 3 and 4. The number 3 is prosperity is the law of increase in action. This is why Catherine Ponder teaches the laws of increase. She writes, when speaking of someone, speak in terms of their success only. If you know of someone who has been making a comeback from past mistakes, contribute in his unfolding success by ignoring his past and emphasizing only his present good. Number 4, for the fullness of your supply, this prayer refers to providence as first cause. Our calling forth prosperity is second cause. The paragraph 5 above is not, it is not possible that faith, imagination, will, understanding, life, and reunification are innate powers endowed in God's first act so that we might perfect our powers of order, strength, wisdom, love, power, and zeal in our second act. See what Thomas, there's a link to see what Thomas Aquinas has to say about it. Was my speaker okay on that, or do I need to turn something down?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was getting a little bit of feedback, and
Ah.
I moved my computer, and it didn't seem to get better.
I
Okay.
didn't hear it.
Thanks, Sandy. Any comments or thoughts, questions, disagreements?
I can say with, I don't know, shame isn't the right word, but I look back on myself some number of years ago when I was very resistant to saying to someone blessings or signing a letter saying blessings and peace. I thought, oh my God, how presumptuous of you to be sending somebody blessings. And then, thank God, I read something somewhere that said it's not about the person that's saying the word, it's about being a channel to let God's blessings come through and go into the letter or go into the phone call. And I've never reclaimed that false, well, it's not false, but I mean that fear of like getting to feel too important or too much, because I always try to start the day asking that I don't say anything to anybody that hasn't got the Holy Spirit speaking through me. I don't trust myself. I can be pretty snappy, and I'm way less snappy now as I get older, but I used to be very reactive. And if somebody was saying something that I thought was wrong or crazy, I really had a hard time restraining myself. But I've gotten better. And I believe that I'm just what's the word? Vessel. Like I'm just a person that's in a group or in a place, and I'm there to do what I'm told to do. And that's really helped me a lot, to not be afraid to speak up occasionally. And it turns out, what's turned out is that you're actually giving someone a message that they didn't really, that they say, I was thinking about that, but I didn't really know how to put it into words, or yes, that's what I want to be doing. And I think, well, thank you. Thank you, Spirit. And it's wonderful to not think that I've got to keep some skill set or something, active in me. God will do what he wants. And I just have to listen and not be afraid to share. Done.
Thanks, Janet. As you were speaking, I couldn't help but ask myself the question, who says the Holy Spirit can't be snappy?
Try to resist that aspect.
I was thinking in the note here, the Catherine Ponder quote, I was thinking about when I don't know if it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, we also had a note talking about praising our success, praising our bodies, praising situations. And again, the power of our words. The substance of true words is seed, it says up here in paragraph 17. And the harvest will be rich with increase to all who recognize their seed words contain life, substance, and intelligence. So when we speak of someone in terms of their success, using, again, Catherine Ponder's words, the substance of those true words contains life, substance, and intelligence. In the same way that when we praise our bodies, we praise our connections with God, we praise our circumstances, we praise our children, we praise ourselves. We're planting seeds of life, substance, and intelligence.
I call it vitamin L.
Say again, please, Leo.
I call it vitamin L. Here in Thailand, sometimes people are surprised. I take simple meals, and most of the meals I like is prepared by simple people. And they say, "Why is that, Leo?" I say, "Well, I taste a lot of vitamin L in there."
Cool, thank you. Okay, let's move on to 18 and 19. Who would be willing to read 18 and 19? Whoops.
I'll do. If you give me the board, Marty, then I'll read it.
Can you see it?
No, yeah, now, yeah. 18. The fact that there is a law of giving and receiving needs emphasis because many have hindered their demonstration of prosperity by an unwillingness to give, while others have shut off their supply by an
Oops.
Is that it? By a consciousness of plenty?
By an unwillingness to receive?
All right, by an unwillingness to receive. Yeah. The first fault is usually caused either by selfishness or by a belief in lack. The second fault by pride of some form. Whatever may be the error, the overcomer must change his thinking and feeling in regard to substance and his relation to it. This is done by a conscious practice of denial, affirmation, meditation, and prayer. Selfishness is overcome by giving up the false concept of the source of all good and by realizing that the great universal substance is free and open to him and all persons. Pride is a form of selfishness. Beliefs of lack are eliminated by the recognition of one substance, everywhere present, constantly responsive to all demands made upon it. The note on 5.
Can you read 19 and then we'll do the notes?
All right.
Thank you.
19. Prosperity comes not by chance, but in accordance with absolute laws. There is no such thing as luck. The law is universal, and even those who are ignorant of spiritual things sometimes blindly set it into operation for a time. Such an experience they call a streak of luck. If they would study the law and obey it intelligently and willingly, it would work for them continually and their prosperity would be permanent. They would not judge prosperity by the outward appearance, but by the inward consciousness of plenty, and thus they would be satisfied. The outer world corresponds to the inner, and there would no longer be an appearance of lack. The note on 5. Can you move up a bit more? Yeah. 5. Pride is a form of selfishness. The humble are able to receive, not so for the proud. Pride is a form of personal vanity over spiritual achievement, a proud personal spirit, a holier than thou attitude. Look at revealing words / pride. True humility is needed very much in the Christ-centered individual. The true Christian is humble. We know the nothingness of our lesser self and the allness of our inner Christ. Recognition of our lesser self is ineffectual. See revealing words / humility. I can of myself do nothing. John chapter 5, verse 30. Affirm with Jesus. The Father abiding in me does his works. John chapter 14, verse 10. Number 6. There is no such thing as luck, but there is such a thing as being lucky. If we consider God's first act in creating an abundant universe.
Thanks, Leo.
Thank you.
So there's a lot there from paragraphs 18 and 19 and the notes. So any reflections, anybody?
Yeah, I'll start.
Yeah.
Sometimes people discuss with me and say, well, I can spend money on this, I can spend money on that. I say, well, if you spend your money, you create real room to receive. And at some time, that idea sinks in. And people act and they find out that it really works. It means it's flowing again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prosperity is a thing, right? I remember a time, I think from 40 years ago, I constantly had a number in my brain, 50,000. I had no idea where that number came from. until one day I wrote my first bill that came to 50,000. I said, wow, I earned this time 50,000. And I remembered that number. It really works. A number is something that is so unpersonal, but so powerful. So take a good number in your thoughts.
That's like, that goes back to this thing up here we read about the substance of words is seed.
I think there's something about faith that's part of this, all of this. And my story is that in 2004 is when I left my husband. And I left behind the big house and all the stuff. And I took my kids and we went to this tiny, scary place to me. And, but I really felt that I had been directed, that it was time to do this. I should have done it long before that. And I knew that I was doing this. And for 6 months, once a month, I got a special delivery envelope with a $500 Amex gift card from somebody, never revealed themselves, never said who they were. Obviously, God, or my higher power, had inspired somebody who had a lot of money to send me that money. And it made all the difference in the sense that that's where I first got that faith that you'll be provided for. The budget didn't balance with what I was going to have to pay for rent and what I was earning in pay. None of it balanced. The $500 made it all balance, and never forgotten it. And I get to tell the story today, which is something I haven't thought of for a long time. So it definitely works. But nobody was sending me $500 that I could save in my marriage home and say, oh, well, now I've got a pack of money. I had to step out and trust God and be scared and do it. And then the help came. And I try to remember that now when I'm scared of doing things. It's not, you can't pre-plan it and then say, oh, yeah, it's fine. I've pre-planned this. It's going to be fine. Just have to have faith.
Is that like the old saw about how do you make God laugh?
Perhaps.
How do you make God laugh?
Tell him your plans.
Okay. Good one.
I also wonder, Janet, I was thinking about this very last note here. It says there's no such thing as luck, but there is such a thing as being lucky if we consider God's first act in creating an abundant universe.
Huh?
And when Leo read that, I was kind of figuratively scratching my head. It's like, what does that mean? And then you told your story, and I wondered if your story wasn't an illustration of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? That first stage in 2004, it pulled the plug somewhere inside me where I did become more risk taking and more aware that if it really feels like it's right and you really prayed about this and you meditated and you're still feeling, even though you don't want to do this, you're going to be okay. And it was on that basis that I left Boston and moved to New York City for a job that I didn't think I was qualified to do, to live in a place. I never watched it in movies and thought, who would ever want to live there? It's chaos. But when the call came, I stepped out in faith. And then I had to find a place to live. So I went on a visit. I was going to start in June, and I went on a visit in March. And I found the absolutely perfect apartment and the right price, and everything was great. I couldn't pay that rent for 4 months. And so I said to the woman, I just love this place so much, but I can't start paying until I come here and get the New York dollars and I can't start paying you until June. She said, give me a minute. And she went and talked to her husband and she came back. She said, we're going to hold the apartment for you. No money. I gave them nothing. I didn't give them a security deposit. She knew the people I was going to be working with at the school, and she knew if I was working at that school that I probably was a good person. But it still was, people said, that's insane. Why would somebody do that? And I said, well, people do things because they're inspired to do it. And I just have to be grateful. And I've got a million of them. I really have been someone said to me once, you live in the Tao. And I didn't know what that meant, but I now see it. It's very related to what it's talking about here, that once you're in the river and you're in the flow, it just keeps happening because you're in the flow. When you're on the edges and you don't want to step out the first time, it's harder to keep it going. And that's got something to do with the fountain thing. I'm not sure what, but it's good to remember these things when I get feeling so incapable. Toughen up.
Well, I wonder if the fountain metaphor works, because we can, like Sandy was saying about her fountain, we can push ourselves to the corner and be where the water's stagnant, or we can choose to move toward the fountain itself and be in the circulation.
When the lady just talked about the river, I've often thought as things came along that you just need to get into the river of life, of things that are going on. Just you need to be busy doing something rather than just sitting still. And it's just amazing what floats down the river that is suddenly helpful. I'm glad to be reminded of that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I'd like to welcome Rhonda. Welcome, Rhonda.
Thank you. So
Good to
good to
see
be
you.
back with y'all.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
We're just finishing up paragraphs 18 and 19, and I'm going to move on to paragraph 20 and 21st, because this may also be a reflection on what Janet was just sharing with us. Who would be willing to read these two paragraphs?
I'll give it a try, Marty.
Okay, thanks, Veldon.
It says, how may we overcome worry about supply? All anxiety concerning supply is removed by knowing God as the source of supply. Health is another form of prosperity, and it would, in many cases, maybe I ought to put my glasses on and help.
Having glasses is prosperity.
In many cases, spring forth speedily from, turn the page, Diane.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to pull this over where I can see it. If we're overcome, because many people suffer both in mind and in body from belief in lack and from consequent worry. The habit of praise for the fullness and richness of God's bounty will lift men and out of a consciousness of lack caused by not knowing God as the Father of supply. You want me to keep going here?
Please.
Okay. In the past, it was generally believed that it was God's will for men to be sick and poor, but great light has come to the race, and such errors are fast becoming dispelled. God's promises of prosperity are so numerous in the Bible that it seems strange that they could have been overlooked. It is sometimes said that Jesus was poor, but such a word is surely a misnomer when applied to a man who could demonstrate supply as Jesus demonstrated it. Doubtless he had true riches, the consciousness filled with ideas of God as substance, and he lived in consciousness with God. Okay. All anxiety concerning supply, Emily Cady's chapter on trusting and resting in how I use truth has much to say about supply anxiety. About
Depressed.
in the matter of God as our supply, or any other side of the divine law that we from time to time attempt to bring into manifestation. The moment we begin to be anxious, our quiet becomes simply the airtight valve of tension or suppressed anxiety that shuts out the very thing we are trying to bring about, and so prevents its manifestation. Diane, you take over. I can't read it.
The second one is God's promises of prosperity have been overlooked. There are some things that we are to do ourselves, but there are others that God does not expect us to do. They are His part, and our greatest trouble lies in our trying to do God's part, just because we have not learned how to trust Him to do it. That's the old go and let God.
I was gonna say that's the story of my life right there.
Just step aside and let him go to work.
Speaking of prosperity, there's just something that I want to pass on to everybody. Diane and I were married and only been married a few months, and I suddenly got laid off of my job. And, Diane is still in college, and I got laid off of my job, and we're standing in our apartment, and I put my arms around her, and I held her, and told her everything was going to be all right. And then next year, this year, I'm going to make $10,000 a year. And I thought, well, then where the hell did you get that idea? You must be out of your mind. Here to report that within that next year, I suddenly, out of the blue, hit that job, and it was sort of again putting that forth, and it came about.
Wow.
That was
So-
in
So was it really out of the blue? It's like Leo's 50.
That was our 10,000 and Leo's 50 grand. We should have thought bigger.
That's a good one. I think the important thing I need to remind myself, because we're talking a lot about money, but I have found to be true that prosperity that's coming comes under the masquerading bad face of something that's either sickness or calamity of some sort in present time. That if I was talking to a Christian metaphysical person and said, "Oh, I'm experiencing so much prosperity right now," they might get it. But I know a lot of people in my Catholic world, and Irish Catholic particularly, anything that happens that's dark or a little bit scary is you've just lost all contact with God, and you're either being punished for something or this is just a bad thing. And I'm sitting here thinking, how do I know all these things? Never having been in a unity church, but I think it's from the years of reading Myrtle and Emily Cady's work over and over again, and Emmett Fox. I would go around with them, sometimes all at once, sometimes one at a time. I've been reading them for a long time. And it's so interesting to me to now see people that know all about this. It's like you're all magical people that have been doing this. And I met Cora Thompson, maybe. She's got a 3-week thing going about silence. And we had the best chat because she's the one that said to me, well, you're not, just because you didn't belong to a church doesn't mean that you weren't open and learning. And it then gets you to where I no longer, I suffered from tremendous anxiety, and I never would take medication for it because I felt it was happening for a reason to teach me something.
Wow.
And I do know that that was all true. I want to do it over again? Those years? I don't know. I don't think so. But that was prosperity because I learned a lot. And it just all fits together. And we can't be scared about anything because it all fits together, even when it doesn't appear to. Um, I'm so happy to know people that know all these things, and I can really get understanding of the stuff I don't understand, which is a lot.
A
So
real
it
sense
it
of,
may turn out that the anxiety was the introduction to supply, to substance,
Absolutely. We're doing the Lord's Prayer from the Emmett Fox book
right?
on Tuesday. So I get out, I go looking, and I find The Power of Constructive Thinking that I was reading in 1993, maybe. And it's all this language about source and supply, and that God is the source, and you can't limit where the supply is. The supply can come from any number of places. I thought that was the craziest thing I'd ever read. And I thought, oh, this is, God, he's another saint up there, even though he is a Catholic. But it all turns out to be true. And it's it's such a perfect timing as I'm aging and freaked out about that. Um, it feels like I've got a posse, and I like it.
yes. Yes.
Cool. Well, let's move on and see what we can get finished in the time we have left. Let's move on to this short paragraph here, number 22. Who would be willing to read that?
I'll read that one.
Okay.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yes. Sources and channels of supply. Why does the apparent source of income sometimes stand in the way of one's knowing God as his bountiful and ever-present supply? While yet in an unenlightened state, the mind sometimes firmly holds the belief that supply can come only in a certain way. The channel is looked upon as the source. External supply, such as the weekly wage or the income derived in other ways, assumes large proportions in the mind and shuts out the consciousness of God as the source of supply. This state of mind can be changed by denial of the error and by affirming of the truth. Footnote 1. The channel is looked upon as the source. Next to the law of giving and receiving, this may be the most important metaphysical teaching on prosperity.
Thanks, Kevin. Thoughts? Leo, go ahead.
Yeah. When I came to Thailand, I had to decide what to do. And there are certain rules to be able to allow to stay in Thailand. And I decided for a form based on how you say that, old age pension. And there are certain rules to follow. And just this week, I thought, well, okay, I mean, sticking to those rules, but I wouldn't mind to get another channel of income.
We used to say in our church when we did the blessing of the offering God is the source and I am the channel. But this, I find this is to be very human. The channel is looked upon as the source. The thing, we give the thing the power in our limited consciousness rather than God as the source. It reminds me, of course, of the speaking of Emmett Fox, the golden rule, or the golden key rather. Take your mind off the condition, take your mind off the channel, and put your focus on God, put your focus on the source. And I love that he says, and that's the entire law right there.
Yeah.
And of course, Mark notes here, next to the law of giving and receiving, this might be the most important metaphysical teaching on prosperity. It might be the most important metaphysical teaching, period. We were talking about this just a minute ago. This is another version of let go and let God.
Yeah. Don't believe in the restrictions.
Right. So restrictions can be like the anxiety. They can be the reminder of what the truth is. It's the old Zen Buddhist notion about the finger pointing at the moon. The finger is not the reality. The moon is the reality. But sometimes we mistake this for being the power. Suzanne, you remember the song we used to sing? I think it's called My Source. God is the source of my supply, ready the good to multiply, bringing the substance I require, filling my every deep desire. This I know, blessings flow, and my confidence in God will grow. This I know, blessings flow. Is it blessings? I know this flow, feeling. Oh God, I lost the last line there. You remember it?
Well, it's good.
I think it's filling every desire,
Every deep desire, right?
every deep desire. There you go.
Thank you.
That's a good one. I miss those hymns.
Yeah, I still sing that one. I think it's I got my wings of song here. I think it's 169. Let's see how my memory is here.
Online.
No, it's not. Come on, true students. Am I the only one? 149. God has abundantly decreed substance supplying every need, causing his riches to outpour till every cup is running o'er. And then the last verse is, prove me and see now if I will, windows of heaven open till so many wondrous blessings pour, there won't be room enough for more.
Wow.
Well,
no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was in Medjugorje when it was still Yugoslavia, and a long time ago. But the message that I got was that God is answering prayers we don't even know we're praying.
Yeah.
And it really relieved my mind at that time that I didn't have to try to anticipate every calamity that was coming my way and pray about it, or for people who ask for prayer. I just relaxed and thought, God is answering prayers I haven't even articulated. but they're in my heart. And I think that's a great relief also.
Well, it puts me in mind of the daily word. I mean, we are receiving this love, this maternal, all embracing, all supporting, all affirming love 24/7, whether we're aware of it or not. And when I tap into it consciously, it's a reducer of anxiety.
Mm.
And that love is prosperity. It's just another way of looking at or understanding or conceptualizing prosperity. So we're coming to the end of our time together. Are there any last minute words of wisdom or?
I would like to make a wonderful comment, complimentary, really. There is a new pope in the world, and I think this is of some significance. I'm really excited, never having been Catholic before, but I was really caught up in the astounding news that there is an American pope. I see the hand of God in this, folks. I really do. Um, I think maybe this is an opportunity for a long reign that has to do with influencing peace on his behalf throughout the world. And he is an influencer for many heads of state and other people, as well as a religious leader. And I think this is going to be a very good development throughout the world that this man has come to the head of the Catholic Church. I congratulate them. I really do.
Thanks,
And,
Diane.
and I thank you a lot for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
It rings true.
Well, on that note, let's bring our time together to an end by sharing together the prayer for protection. Together, the light of
God surrounds us.
Surrounds us.
The
The
love
love
The
of
love
God
of God
holds us.
Enfolds us.
holds us.
The power
Power
of God
of God
protects us.
protects us.
The presence of
Presence
God
of God
watches over us.
Watches over us.
Wherever we
wherever
are,
we are.
God is,
God
God
is,
is.
and
all is
all
well.
is
All is
well,
well.
and we are prospered.
Amen.
Amen. Bye
Thanks,
now.
everybody. And again, happy
Thanks so
Mother's Day
much.
to the moms.
Thank you.
All right.
See you next
Bye.
week.